Hi, this is Rob, and you're listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 FM. This is Experimental Radio, and we were just listening to a work by Ryan Francis for piano, performed by Vicky Chow, one of the members of the Bang on a Can ensemble in New York. And today it's a special day. We have a special guest in the studio. Kathryn Vetter from the music department is here. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. So this is kind of continuing our furthering our knowledge of what's happening in the music department at Stony Brook, and what kinds of things are happening in new music and experimental music. And Kathryn has come here this year and done a lot of different things and has a lot of different projects going. We'll talk about some of those later. But first, if you just want to introduce yourself and what your degree is and what else you do here.
Sure. So my name's Kathryn. I just came to Stony Brook this year. It's my first year in the doctoral program. My degree is in clarinet performance. So I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. And you also do some teaching, right? You teach the undergrad studio here?
I do, yeah. So I'm the clarinet teaching assistant, so I teach the undergrad clarinet students here at Stony Brook. And I also am a teaching assistant for the rock music class as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be a TA for that class.
It's pretty fun, yeah.
A secret hope of mine.
It's great.
But in addition to all these jobs and schooling that you're doing all these projects outside of school. I guess we'll talk about those later. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But you're originally from the Midwest. You went to Michigan State for your undergrad? And then,
so I'm actually originally from New Jersey, but then I did go to Michigan State for my undergrad. Mm-hmm. So originally from the East Coast. My undergrad from Michigan State's in music education. And then after that, I went to the University of Oklahoma and did master's degrees in clarinet performance and music theory.
Cool. And I was reading your bio and noticed that you did some lectures on Kaija Saariaho's music.
I did, yes. Yes.
So I also, just to give some background, just last week or 2 weeks ago, I just gave a lecture on her music as well. So I thought we could talk a little bit about it. So you did it on a certain clarinet solo that she...
Yeah, I did. So I centered my entire theory thesis for my degree around Kaija Saariaho's solo clarinet piece titled Duft. Mm-hmm. And that piece is... So Duft means fragrance, and it's not about specific fragrances, but about how fragrances move through space. And so she does this through just working with the solo clarinet. There's a lot of extended techniques. She plays with different timbres, through tremolos, multiphonics, flutter tongue, all these different things. So yeah, it's a really cool piece.
Yeah. When I was doing some research on her, for background for the listeners who don't know, she's a Finnish composer who spent some time in Germany, some time in France, and she has this certain characteristic style that's kind of I kind of see it related to like the natural world, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, in Finland, they have the Aurora Borealis, right, and also. They're right near the water, and so there's all these things that she grew up with, and these kind of like undulating, transitional sort of aspects of the world around her that she's integrating into her music.
Yeah, and she talks a lot about that too as a young child, just hearing music in the natural world around her. And
I think that's kind of how some of her music registers too. It's a little bit more like sound oriented than maybe music oriented, and that kind of goes into her interest in timbre and stuff too. So that's awesome. That's so cool that you did that. That was a cool fact that I found out today.
A really cool thing too that I found out by doing this research on her clarinet work. She also has a clarinet concerto, and the solo piece and the concerto have a lot of the same musical material for the clarinet, but it's in a different order. So the concerto has 5 movements and the solo piece has 3, and she sort of reorders it because she likes to take the same material and reinvent it rather than just reusing it.
That's also relevant to what I was looking at, because I played one of her solos a couple of years ago, and then I played this other solo, which is uses some of the same musical material, but also like reorients it. And not only that, but it's related to this quartet that she wrote. So it's like a solo that she like made out of this quartet, you know. So she's like recontextualizing this material in a lot of different ways, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I think that I read a quote by her that said something about like she needs to fall in love with musical material before she uses it again. So she's really dedicated to that process. Yeah.
Never thought of it like that before.
Yeah.
Anyways. So just a fun fact about Kathryn. For those of you that just tuned in, we're with Kathryn Vetter, who's a clarinet performance doctoral student here at Stony Brook. And we're just talking about what she's doing at Stony Brook and a couple of the projects that she's working on. So that's a good segue into this particular project that's doing some touring soon. And this is the Oasi?
Yep.
Okay. I got it right. So it's OASI. And this is a group. Well, why don't you tell us about it, Kathryn?
Sure.
I think it'd be better if you just you preface it.
Yeah, so this is a trio. The Oasi trio is it consists of myself on clarinet, Claire Niederberger on violin, and Manus Villanueva on piano. And we are dedicated to performing contemporary music for our instrumentation. There has been quite a bit written, but we're commissioning more contemporary composers and really dedicated to performing music that's written today.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys met at Cortona Sessions, which is in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when was that? That was a couple...
That was actually last summer.
That was last summer? Oh,
so
that's
we met
great.
last summer in Italy.
And where in Italy is that?
Cortona is a little bit south of Florence.
South of Florence. Okay, great. I've been to Rome. I've been to Florence. It's really nice over there. Was it hot? I guess it was really hot.
We went in May, so it was kind of hot, but it was actually really nice.
How is that program structured? Like, is it... there's like a lot of different types of... If you're a musician, you often go to these summer festivals, and some of them are very... structured. Some of them are not as structured, but was it sort of like you were put in ensemble, or like was a repertoire already assigned, or
it was
something like that?
Focused on contemporary chamber music, so it's called the Cortona Sessions for New Music.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there are performers there, but there's also composers there. And
cool.
So the composers write for different instrumentations made up of the performers that are there. And so then we rehearse their pieces, we work with the composers on their pieces, so it's a real collaborative effort. The fellows, the performance and the composition fellows, work really closely with the faculty as well. We play with them, we perform with them, we take lessons with them too, have more like studio classes. There were only 2 clarinets, but we still had really fun like clarinet gatherings. And then we eat meals together too, so it's very much a collaborative effort to make this new music as good as possible.
So is that something that you're kind of bringing forward now? You form this group there, and it seems like you're going to be commissioning some composers?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. Who are you commissioning?
Sure. So our fall project that we're currently working on is called the Post-Cortona Premieres Project, and it consists of 6 commissioned works by 5 composers. All of these composers were also Cortona Fellows. Only 2 of them were actually there our year, and then we wanted to incorporate fellows from other years as well. So some of them are from past years that we just connected with because of this project. So we're all Cortona alumni, and that's what we're commissioning. So the composers are Chelsea Comschles, Clark Hubbard, Diana Rodriguez, Paul Huang, and Will Healy.
Cool. How did you like manage this? Did you reach out to the composers, or did you have these conversations like at the festival? Or it's always kind of an interesting. I've been a part of a couple commissions, and sometimes it's just natural. Sometimes it's just your friends. But it sounds like some of these people you didn't know.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of how this project all started was during the festival. There was a performance competition, and that was just a solo competition, and I won last year.
Awesome.
And so the prize...
Oh, I did see that in your bio.
Yeah. The prize for winning that competition is a commission from one of the composers at the festival.
Oh, cool.
So I decided to commission Paul Huang to write a solo clarinet piece. So then when Manus, Claire, and I decided to form this trio, I was like, well, I already have one commission going. Why don't we make this a whole big project and have trios, duos, and solos? So these aren't just trios that are being written for us. There's different combinations of our ensemble, too.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how it started. So some of them are friends that sort of happened naturally, and then others we reached out to just for this project, and we've become friends in the process.
Very cool. I really like that idea of doing different permutations of the ensemble, because I've been to some ensemble performances where, I mean, as I guess from my perspective as a percussionist, sometimes the colors get old in like a concert.
Right.
So you're like, oh, this combination of instruments is like, I get it. You know?
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes there's things that instruments have in common or very different that you don't really notice in like a larger ensemble setting. So to show off those like different aspects, it's nice to break it up with different
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something I'm thinking more and more about recently. But that's great. Okay, so you have all these composers, and you're gonna do a tour. Okay, but you need some help maybe doing that tour.
We do, yes.
Are you guys you guys are fine financially, right?
Of course, yeah, we got it all covered. So the whole plan is to do a premieres concert in New York City. So that'll be the premiere of all 6 of these works. And then after that, we're going to go on tour. Kind of a fun fact we haven't talked about is this trio doesn't all live in New York. So
That's tough.
I live in New York, but Manus lives in Chicago, and Claire currently lives in Houston. So we're going on tour to these different areas. So we're going to tour some other East Coast locations, some Midwest locations, and then what we're calling the South Central United States locations. So,
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That touring is great. So you're going to have a lot of fun.
We're super excited. And the tour, we're doing performances, but we also have some outreach performances as well, because one of our goals as a trio is to bring contemporary music and new music to as many audiences as possible. So
can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we have one specifically that I can talk about right now. In Kansas right now, we have so we'll have a performance, and then we'll also have an outreach performance where we go into the public schools. So it doesn't just consist of us standing up there performing and the kids watching. It's very interactive. And we're still sort of planning exactly what we're going to do, but one idea we've talked about is doing something with improvisation, which we sort of explored first at the Cortona sessions. And so kind of bringing that to the students and showing them like that you can be musical no matter your ability level, and it's just about putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and that sort of exposure early on, like especially to new music or improvisation or like freer music, I guess is I think really important, because it's at that point that we like develop our
like opinions
yeah, like very at a very young age,
right?
And I'm sure that you're similar. I can remember when I was young, like seeing some of like new music or experimental music, and like it was like something I've never seen before, right? And it like totally blew my mind at the time. And so like the fact that you can like give that back to other kids is awesome. And
also at the same time, like a lot of kids, it's just music to them. So whatever style it is, they just see it as music, and so that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, like opening their ears sort of is really, really important. Okay, great. Yeah, and so to fund this tour, though, you're doing you're doing a little bit of a fundraiser, right?
Yeah, so we're working with a fundraiser right now to raise the funds not only for the tour, but also to support the composers through their commissioning fees, because these are excellent composers, and we want to support them. And that's sort of the goal of this tour as well. So the tour will get the composers multiple performances of their new pieces. So it's not just, we don't just play the piece once and then we're done. So it'll get them multiple performances, multiple recordings that they can then use going forward, and then commissioning fees as well. So that's kind of what our fundraiser is going towards, is supporting these composers who, like us, are early on in their careers.
So where can people get more information about this, about the trio, about the fundraiser? And
yeah, so you can visit our website. It's oasitrio.com. That's OASI and then trio. And if you want to learn more specifically about the fundraiser, you can go to oasitrio.com/donate.
Great. Now we have a little track that you guys played in New York a month ago or so.
Yeah, okay. March 31st, we played this in Brooklyn.
Cool. We've been talking so much about the trio. Now we'll listen to a little bit of it. Do you want to just set this track up for us?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be Unisono by Jesse Jones. And this piece is described as a virtuosic barn burner. So it's really fun for us to play.
That's
we really
the
enjoyed
best
this
description
piece.
I've heard for a piece
I think
ever.
that was like the publisher's description of it. It is really technical, and changes time signatures really quickly and a lot of changing subdivisions, and it's just super fun for us to play, and we're definitely going to play it again sometime.
Cool. All right. If you're just tuning in with us, we're with Kathryn Vetter, who is part of the Oasi trio. Oasi trio.
Yep.
And we're going to listen to a track, Unisono, by Jesse Jones. I think there might be some tuning in the beginning of this video. I'm just going to try to cue this up. Just bear with me. But you're listening to Experimental Radio on WUSB Stony Brook. Hi, you're listening to WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 FM, 107.3 FM, and streaming online at WUSB.FM. This is Experimental Radio, Rob speaking, and we just listened to the Oasi trio play a piece called Unisono by Jesse Jones. The clarinetist in the Oasi trio, Kathryn Vetter, is a student at Stony Brook University, and she's in the studio with us today. Hey, again, Kathryn. So that was great. I love that piece. It was so virtuosic.
Thank you.
It sounded really hard. So I think you guys put a lot of work into it. Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about this tour that you guys are doing, and you have these 5 composers, right, that you're commissioning for pieces for this tour. Do you want to just talk a little bit about each of those composers?
Sure, of course. Yeah, we're super excited to be working with each of these composers, and we selected them because we love their music and they're great people. I'll start with Chelsea Comschles. She's about to start her PhD in composition at McGill this coming fall, and she's currently writing a trio for us, and she's talked about writing a trio based on her experiences with different fragrances, which intrigued me, as we talked about before, connections to Kaija Saariaho. Yeah. So she really is interested in these instinctual associations between music and other experiences, and so that's really cool, and I'm really looking forward to that trio. We also have Clark Hubbard, who was one of the composition fellows at Cortona with us last summer, and he's writing 2 pieces for us, actually. One's a trio, and then one is going to be a solo piece for Claire for violin. And Clark is really inspired by connecting different genres of music, so he's particularly interested in connecting pop and classical music. He's also a percussionist, so there's probably some drive from that.
Awesome.
And he's currently getting his master's in percussion from the University of Michigan.
Cool.
The next one we're also working with Diana Rodriguez, who is actually a PhD student at Columbia University in New York. And she writes a lot combining electronics and acoustic instruments. So we're pretty excited to be working with her as well. I talked a little bit about Paul Huang before. He's writing a solo clarinet piece for me. And I chose to commission him based on the competition at Cortona. He's currently based in LA, but he's actually from New Jersey, just like me. So
awesome.
And then the last composer is Will Healy. He's also a New York composer. He went to Juilliard, and he's also a pianist. And he's actually doing a transcription of a piece that he wrote for soprano, saxophone, and piano. So he's going to transcribe it for clarinet and piano.
Oh, cool.
And so this piece was actually written as the winner of the performance competition. I believe it was back in 2015, I want to say.
At Cortona Sessions.
At the Cortona Sessions,
Yep.
yeah. It was the saxophonist Connor Mikula, and who I actually went to undergrad with. So we're actually good friends.
Oh, nice.
And so he selected Will to write this piece for him. And I've heard it performed a few times. And so I contacted Will, and I said, that piece would sound great on clarinet. And he kind of agreed. So he's writing a transcription for myself and for Manus. So
That's great.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, electronics.
Yeah.
Are you going to do... Is there going to be a piece with electronics? We do a lot of electronics on this show, so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Diana and I have talked about doing it. Last we brainstormed about the piece. That was the plan.
That was the plan.
I don't want to put words in her
Cool.
mouth.
I mean, that's going to
it
be...
has changed.
Yeah,
but
that's going to be such an interesting concert. There's going to be so much... Like, it's going to be very eclectic, very... Yeah.
Yeah, we picked the composers, too, because they do have really different styles, and we thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then if you need to program a concert in the future that has like a smaller number of pieces, then you just pick 3 that work.
Exactly,
it works in a lot of different ways. So
Right.
that's really cool. Okay, so let's just say the website one more time so
Sure.
people know. They're raising some funds also for this tour, so you can find more information there. So just say the website one more time.
Sure. So if you want to find out more information about the trio or this project or the composers, we have a lot of information about them on the website as well. It's oasitrio.com. That's OASI trio.com. And specifically, if you want to find out more about the fundraiser that we're running for this project, which supports the tour and the composers and the premieres, that is at oasitrio.com/donate. And there's a little button that says donate, and you can click on that, and that'll give you more information. We're also on all social media platforms, so you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if that's your preference.
They have great Instagram stuff up.
We do have pretty good.
What was the recent thing? It was like improvisations.
Yeah, so for one of the donation levels, we have rewards and prizes for the donation levels. You can get merch or free tickets to our concerts, or there's even a level where you could get a private house concert. We'll come to your house and put on a concert.
That's cool.
So we recently ran a promo that was if you donated a certain amount, one of the members of the Oasi trio would do an improvisation based off of your personality.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And it also goes into your interest in improvisation and incorporating that with. So that was smart. That was a really smart way of doing it. Okay, great. So thank you again for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For everyone that just tuned in, we were just talking to Kathryn Vetter, and she's a member of the Oasi trio. And she's also a doctoral student at Stony Brook, just around the corner. So really glad to have you in. And I think you have to go off to a improvisation session right now.
Yes, I do.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to put on some more of Ryan Francis's piano etudes performed by Vicky Chow. And we'll be back in a second. Thanks again. You're listening to WUSB Stony Brook.